So this video is going to be about confronting my family about my transition. So, I'm out. I'm out to my family. Um, Obviously, if they've seen me anytime recently. Uh, but this part of my family is in Washington State, and they haven't seen me in 3 years. Uh, Around that, at least that. And they know that I'm transitioning, but they haven't had a face to face with me. Um, they've talked to me since then, but like since I've been transitioning, they never talked to me on the phone, so they've never heard me or anything like that. And I'm actually making a trip up there in mid-August, and I was talking to my dad the other day because it's his side of the family, just to see kind of what they've been saying about me, how they feel about it, because I never asked them, and like I said, maybe in some other videos, I never asked anybody in my family what they felt about it because I didn't care. I just told them what I was gonna do, so I just I didn't even tell them. I mean, my dad told them, uh, which is a whole nother story, but. So yeah, I'm gonna go up there, and mostly I'm gonna stay with one of my grandparents, uh, and she's cool with it. I called her the other day, and we had a conversation, a long conversation about it, and she's supportive, and she's good, and so I'm not concerned about that. But I have another grandma, um, which I am a little concerned about, and that's just because of how she's responded to me in the past about being gay. So I called my dad, and he told me something that was a little bit alarming to me. Um, that probably isn't that bad compared to some stories you other guys have. So basically, I went to Egypt for 6 months, and prior to that, I had asked her for a loan of like $1,000 bucks. In the meantime, while I was getting some money from the school, because I needed it right then and there, um, and she had just sold her house, and so I knew she had a large chunk of money, and so I asked for a loan for $1,000 and that I pay her back in a month for my trip to Egypt. Well, she said no, so I kind of was like, "Fuck you, Grandma," not to her face, but I didn't. I was like, "What the hell is that about?" I didn't really get to me, and just whatever. But that popped up in my mind again when my dad told me this in November that same year while I was still in Egypt. She gave him a chunk of money and told him, without him saying anything about anything, don't give any of this to Jamie for surgery. And when he told me that, I was like, what? You know, uh, why would she say that? I never asked, the family for money for surgery. I asked my dad for money for surgery. Some of my friends chipped in, and that was great. But the vast majority of the cost for surgery that I had to pay out of pocket came from me. So, you know, so that just gave me a little insight into what my grandma was thinking about, thinks about me transitioning. So, um, so I'm going up there and I'm gonna see her, and I told my dad about this, and he said, "Well, you got to know she's old and she's very religious, And so I pretty much said, "Well, stop making excuses for grandma. Like, I have plenty of older people in my life. I have plenty of very conservative, very religious people in my life that have been very accepting, And I think a lot of people make excuses for people who have reactions to our transition that we don't necessarily like. Um, but I think it's bullshit, you know. And I think I told Dad, like, stop making excuses for your mom for her ignorance. Like, that's what it is. It's ignorance, you know. And I remember when my grandma, she didn't. I mean, she knew that I was gay when I was 16, um, because I was going to school up uh, in the Washington State that year. So she found out about that then, and her problem with me being gay wasn't necessarily of like the sinfulness of it according to her beliefs, although I'm sure that she thought that too, but it was with the way that I looked. She had a problem of me being masculine and a female, and that was very prominent in like all of her derogatory remarks that she would make towards me, you know. So I think a lot of it right now is the fact that she has this idea of what transgender people look like, which is like not much of an idea at all. People that don't know anything, the closest point of reference maybe would be an ultra masculine female, or like a cross dresser, or as like a stage performer, um, and that's probably what she thinks I look like. I mean, she hasn't seen any pictures of me or anything like that, and so it's kind of like this idea of that, looking like a spectacle, and so I think that when I get there and I'm like, hey, grandma, look, I'm looking normal, like I'm fine, like what the fuck's your problem? That she'll, maybe ease off a little bit. And you think, she would just like be happy with my life, considering I'm pretty sure at this point I'm the most educated person in my family besides like my uncle. Like I've done a lot of good things, maybe ease up on this a little bit. So, I think that the main point there is, a lot of people like write letters to people to come out. And I think that's good for coming out because it gives them time to process. But like when someone is not using the right pronouns, when someone refuses to use the name that you want to go by, you don't just like sit back and like wait for them to like come to it on their own terms. I mean, you confront them, and maybe like don't get in your grandma's face and be like, "What the hell? Why do you have a problem with this?" But it's very hard for someone to like remain in their ignorant bubble when they're being confronted with something like head on. She doesn't see me, so I'm not there on a daily basis, so she doesn't have any motivation to think otherwise. But if she sees me and she talks to me and she gets to understand about my life and what I've gone through, that's the only way that I'm going to make her change her mind. So maybe I'll have to deal with some awkward situations and maybe some derogatory comments and a whole lot of ignorance in the meantime. But how can I expect her to change her mind unless I do something active about it? And so I see a lot of guys like be very passive about this. They're old, they're religious, they're conservative. No, they're ignorant. And maybe they're conservative, religious, old, and ignorant, but the ignorance is the part that gets them, that mindset about you. So, and just, the recap, I had this same situation with my grandparents in Sacramento who didn't have, who had the issue with me being gay, had an issue with me being, but didn't have an issue with me being trans. And I asked them about it because, my grandma, one of my particular grandmas there, used to treat me fairly badly. And all of a sudden it was like, we love you, you're our favorite grandson, come over, stay as long as you want. And it just weirded me out. And I was like, what, grandma, like, what is going on? Like, not to be rude, but you have always been very rude to me, and now you're being really nice. So I don't understand what's going on. And, it basically came down to that now I looked socially acceptable. Like, now I could go to their parties and they didn't have to explain me, based on my presentation. So now that I was gender normative, they didn't have a problem with it anymore. And I think a lot of times it comes down to that. And I'm glad that they're accepting, and I definitely take that with a grain of salt. But you have to, I think it's good to look deeper into people's motivations for their beliefs about you and stop making excuses for them. So hopefully some of you guys found that useful. I definitely did as I kind of process this myself. And I'll let you know how my confrontation with my grandma goes when I get back from Washington in September. So thanks for watching.